Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. This is hashtag No Limits, and I am your host, Shelly Kino. Hashtag No Limits is about people whose society has placed limits upon, but who are busting through those limits. Ophelia says in Hamlet, "We know who we are, but not who we will be." And I believe that to be 100% true, and that there is not a better or more beautiful example than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. I'm going to give you a super simplified lesson on how that happens. Basically, the caterpillar dissolves into its cells, and then it has to think that its life is over at that point, but then it reforms into the butterfly in the chrysalis, but it's not finished struggling. It still has to fight to get out of that chrysalis in order for its wings to be strong enough to take it wherever it is going to soar to. That can't be easy, but neither is busting through the limits that society places upon us. And today I'm happy to introduce my guest, but as usual, that has to wait for just a little bit longer because I do have to do the business side of things, which is making sure that you are liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell button to make sure that you don't miss a single episode of hashtag No Limits, or when I go on and give tips and hints and tricks and teaching lessons about special education, IEP documentation, and just kind of some motivational things. So make sure again that you hit that like, subscribe, and notify button. And also, if you're watching us today, give us a hashtag live or replay and where you're watching from. All right, I think that takes care of all the businessy things. So now I'm going to bring on Karen. Karen, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome. And I loved your introduction there because I just got off the phone talking about the butterfly and the chrysalis. So already
Oh,
alive.
nice. That is perfect. So, Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to us today.
Uh, I uh, I am a catalyst for change. I like to say I shift human perception for a living, and it's all about creating no limits within ourselves, first and foremost, becoming that butterfly and being able to spread our wings with joy and fulfillment. And that to me is what life is all about. So,
I appreciate that so much. And yeah, sometimes the limits that are are put on us, even though they're not, even though I say society, they really do come from us ourselves, that we
absolutely.
limit based on thinking, based on prior actions, but also based on things that people might have said to us or things that society might have implied about us. And so
Absolutely.
I'm really happy today to have you with me and to talk about how do we change that in ourselves, and how can we, if it's possible, do we help other people change that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, number one, it starts with a choice. When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired about that cycling, recycling, and rehashing all the exhaustion and the overwhelm, and you choose, you make a choice. Enough is enough. And the choice becomes key. Once you choose, we create the awareness. So, my spiraling up methodology, which I use and which I've used certainly for myself, is creating the awareness. Once you get clear of what you want, more than likely, most people know what they don't want coming from past based experiences. I don't want this. I don't want guys because they all do XYZ. Or I can't trust somebody because I had an experience where one person didn't trust me, right? So when you create the clarity around what you want, then you have the power to choose to take the next step, which is the aligned action. Once you take an aligned action, then we get into the embodiment work. And the embodiment work is where we start really taking it in as part of a new identity, the chrysalis to the butterfly that is been
Yes.
struggling to get their wings open. If I were to come up to you and you're struggling to open up your little chrysalis before it's time, you're going to end up dying. So I don't do that for my clients. What I do is I guide them through learning to stretch and move and open their beautiful wings to become that beautiful butterfly that's already there. Once you get to that point of embodiment, then we go into a process which I call expansion, which is part of the spiral, right? We're spiraling up, it never ends. We're expanding those wings. We're actually like coming into ourselves, the newness of ourselves. And then once we get to that, we begin manifesting and life becomes amazing. And I created that methodology basically through trial and error, going through my own angst in life, my own experiences in life. And it really makes a difference when you make that first choice. And it's always beginning with you.
Absolutely. And I completely agree that we do. I think I found myself at this point where I knew that something needed to be different. And so I had to seek out books and people. And between those two things and my faith in God, I was able to change how I perceived myself and how I accepted or rejected other people's opinions about myself. Because that's truly what it is. An opinion is not fact. I think we get that so wrong in our society, and we take someone else's opinion as if it is fact.
Exactly.
And especially when it pertains to, or at least I did, when it pertained to me, or even if I thought it pertained to me, but maybe it didn't.
Exactly.
And so I very much appreciate what you're doing. And so I did want to share that you have a book out, and it came out in April of this year, 2026. And perfect, there it is. And it is, I'm going to screen share. Or actually, you can just tell us about it. Tell us how people can find it. Tell us what the book is about. And yeah.
So it became a best-selling in 3 days in 7 categories. It was a download, and I wrote it from my experiences. And the theme throughout the book is, what can I build with this? When we start spiraling, right? I was a victim when I went through a divorce, and I was victimizing myself. We're spiraling downward. As we start creating an awareness, we begin swirling this way. Well, the goal is to spiral up. As you're spiraling up, you're expanding. Most people think of a spiral as going down. So the book is taking you through this whole methodology, which I just spoke about earlier, from awareness to manifestation. And it gives you pretty much a step-by-step guide to a lot of self-reflection work. Earlier, at the beginning, we talked about Ophelia, I believe you had mentioned. And if we go back to Shakespeare wrote in the 1600s in the play Hamlet, "To thine own self be true," which is also a biblical context. And once you're true to yourself and you know who you are, you have the power to choose to change it. So this is available on Amazon. It's not a big, giant read, but it's a thoughtful read. It's one of these reads where you really want to take the time because you're worth it. And if you want to change anything, it's going to take you a hot moment to do so. So no pressure, no judgment. Don't make yourself bad, wrong. We all have experiences. What are you going to build with them? And when you start when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at start changing. And that's the first step to manifesting a life you want and some joy and fulfillment for sure. So, yeah.
Awesome. And congratulations to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All of that accomplishment with the book. I am also an author and never quite hit the #1 status, but top 10. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with that. And I feel that no matter where we are in that level, in that status, that if we're helping people become the best version of themselves as possible, which is truly what I try to do as a special education consultant is go in and help the IEP team, help that student that we're talking about in that particular meeting become the best version of themselves. And
Absolutely.
I do think a lot of how we perceive ourselves starts from when we're little. And there's two, maybe three main places that all children are involved in as they're growing up, and that is home and school.
Mhm.
And so, are there things that you recommend to parents of neurotypical and neurodiverse children of how they can help spiral up their child from the very beginning?
Okay. Is get to know yourself first. Because when you get to know yourself, you know how to get into their world. I actually have a neurodivergent child. She's not a child, she's an adult actually, that wasn't diagnosed until later. And it's a whole new entity and a whole new world for me to really wrap my brain around it because I've never been educated in that realm until I started getting curious. So, as a parent, again, by knowing myself, I can also support her in identifying the differences and not making her bad wrong for the differences. Because at first, I found myself getting frustrated, to be honest with you. And it was just like, what the heck? If she's being lazy or whatever, you start looking at it because it's the defense. Because we don't want to necessarily say, oh my God, I produced this. There's nothing wrong with this. Brilliant. There's brilliance there. So how am I going to support this brilliance and really make a difference in her life so she can make a difference in society in the realm of which she's able to function? So she went through burnout. So we're dealing sadly with that right now. And it's giving her the space and the bandwidth to really be with what's so and look for support that's going to support not just her, but support me supporting her. We often leave ourselves out of the equation because we just don't know. We get so overwhelmed and flustered and stressed out because we don't know. Well, until we start educating ourselves and regulating our nervous system. And one of the things that I'm realizing about myself, which might be a huge takeaway for some of the parents, is when my nervous system starts, if I get agitated with something, I look at it's mirroring back at me. So she, thank goodness, as a young adult, she can say, "Mom, take a breath." So breath is your key thing because when I get escalated, it automatically starts escalating her, whether she wants to be or not. And then I see the nervous system regulating, going back and forth. So learning to regulate your own system first and foremost.
And so, how does somebody do that? I mean, so to a lot of people, those words that you just said are brand new concepts. It's almost like a
Okay.
foreign
Yeah.
language. So what does that mean? Regulate my nervous system. Like what can I do with that?
Okay. Perfect. And thank you for that. Because I do it for a living, I often forget. So forgive me. Yeah. So regulating your nervous system. If you've ever had an EKG and you're stressed out, right? Your nervous system is spiking on the chart, right? What we want is a normal sinus rhythm. You want that rhythm to, how do you get from here to here? The breath is your first and foremost key takeaways. It's free. You carry it with you at all times. Well, clients will come to me often and say, "Oh, I need clarity and purpose, and I don't know what I'm doing next." And they're in this agitated state because they're overwhelmed or stressed out. So what do? I'll say, first and foremost, breathe. And they look at me like, I'm paying you to breathe. Well, no, that's just one little thing I'm reminding you, because most people, when you're stressed out, think about it, right? For a moment, if you think about it realistically and you're stressed out, you're shallow breathing. You're breathing from the chest up. You're not using diaphragm breath. So when you're taking that deep breath, what you're doing is your nervous system is oxygenating and getting enough oxygen however many seconds, 3 seconds, 30, whatever it is, it goes to the brain to create the clarity to support you in creating your next step. So it brings it down. So a lot of people, for example, will have what they call white coat syndrome. They're not in the medical field, and they'll go to the doctor, and all of a sudden you're like, like, oh my God, what's he going to say? The fear of the unknown starts popping up because of some past-based experience that is regulating us to protect yourself. So your nervous system is there to support you in protection. So as it's protecting you, it's putting up these guardrails, and your brain is not thinking clearly because it's so already shutting down for protection. Well, in this case, going to the doctor doesn't always mean you need protection. So by taking that deep breath in, and really exhaling with a deep sigh is also getting rid of a lot of the negative energy. You're able to bring your blood pressure down. It's all connected. So you're putting the pause button, you're taking the deep breath, which is getting you into a nice sinus rhythm, which is bringing your blood pressure down. Because what happens is you go into the doctor's office, you're spiking, spiking, spiking. Here's a prescription, here's a pill, you have high blood pressure. What are you going to do with that? Right. Well, the same thing, because we have a 7-foot energetic field around us. If I bump into my daughter with that 7-foot energetic going, I'm now impacting her 7-foot energetic field. We impact each other, whether we're neurodivergent or whatever, whomever, right? We have that impact on others. So when we are able to regulate our own nervous system and keep calm by responding as opposed to reacting, the word responsibility has the word respond within it, not reacting. So what are you going to build with that? It's a choice.
That is awesome. I absolutely love that. And I don't think I've ever heard that before, that we are going to respond instead of react. And
Yeah.
I think that is very profound, and something that I think a lot of people really need to hear and really need to find a way to internalize that. The breath work that you just mentioned, I've heard that from pretty much all of my therapist friends, my behavioral analyst friends, anybody that really deals with the mind and the body. And
it's all connected.
And so I'm thinking about, a parent who is listening, and they have a young child who, or even an educator, with a classroom full of students, and there's a big behavior happening. A student is, let's say, yelling. It doesn't matter what is being yelled, but they're just yelling. Mm-hmm. Being able to pause and say, I need to take a breath and respond, versus, oh my gosh, I have to stop this kid from yelling.
Exactly. Because whatever you choose to do in the moment is going to create the whole entity of that classroom to respond in kind, or react, in this case, in kind. So what you want is them to respond. So you pause, take your breath. So here's a tool that I give my clients, and I call it the butterfly technique. No coincidences here. But this way it's rememberable, right? And I always recommend writing it down on a sticky note and pasting it all over until you embody this work. Stop, change, and shift. Write that on a sticky note. Stop, change, and shift. So you think of that, the caterpillar is walking along, and all of a sudden it starts slowing down. And all of a sudden it's like, what the heck is happening to me? It's stopping. Right. So now all of a sudden it's getting into the cocoon, and it's going through this metamorphosis, right? This chemical reaction. It's stopping, it's changing, stop, change. And then before it goes into that struggle, it's shifting the energy. It's becoming a new entity in that energy. So when you're stopping and you think of yourself in that metamorphosis of change, stop, change, and shift, you, okay, what's happening? What is happening? Okay, take a breath, pause, hit the pause button. Okay, identifying what's happening. That child is screaming. Okay, right? You're gonna stop yourself. You're gonna change. So how can I change my energy that's going to have them respond in kind? I'm going to redirect them. How can I do that? Maybe it's handing them, for a little child, a new toy, a different toy, or, what is causing it? Identify it. Maybe it's a visual, like easy identifying. If they're just doing it for the sake of doing it, well, maybe it's just going over there and holding their hand and redirecting, stop, changing the energy and shifting the energy into something new. So stop, change, and shift has been the biggest shift that most of my clients will tell me that is the biggest gift I have ever given them. And it's not just one, it's many. When you start exercising the muscle, right, it empowers you to start empowering others.
Absolutely. Do you find in my line of work, because I'm a professional development provider as part of what I do under that special education consultant umbrella, people seek you out for your services. People aren't necessarily seeking me out. Sometimes their schools hire me and bring me in, and then these teachers just sit there because they'd rather be in their classrooms, they'd rather be getting their rooms ready, they'd rather be doing paper, whatever, and they're kind of forced to listen to me.
Yep.
And so do you find that explaining that, even if somebody isn't necessarily receptive, that does start to shift? I know that kind of jumps into the last step, but and I wrote it down, so it is on. Oh, you can't really see it, but
yay! I love
I took
that.
my sticky note. I did it.
Actually,
I'm
if
a
you'll
rule
hold
follower.
it, I want a picture of that one.
Okay. Yep, I will. Yeah, I will do that at the end. I will hold it back up and show you that I did it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because that's my claim to fame. Absolutely. I actually, and I'll give you a case study. I worked for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department down here in Florida. And first and foremost, the way I manage it as a creative problem solving consultant, what I did was I was doing some team building, team bonding for this community. And they had two entities. They had the entity of the IT department, and then they had the entity of the detectives that are out there in the field. And they couldn't get the two together. They were always arguing, so on and so forth, right? You're going to have that in different entities anyway, because we're going to feel that what we're doing is more important than the other person, but we forget sometimes that it's teamwork. So what I did was I wanted to know who each and every one of those players were. So I had the manager who hired me, and I'm listening to his way of thinking, his perception. It's all perception, right? We all have perceptions. And then we have the IT department with their perceptions, and we have the detectives with their perceptions. So I spoke to each and every one of the people that I'm going to be speaking with. I said and he was like, "What are you doing? Like what?" I said, "I want to know who all the players are, and let me know what your perception of them are. Like, who are they for you?" So he wrote me this whole thing, and I said to him, "Well, first and foremost, what's the intention? We always start with an intention." And he told me what he wanted, and I said, "Really? Okay. So break all that down into one sentence." And he was like, "What the heck? Like, what am I hiring you for?" I said, "Trust me. You trust me." I said, "I want one word." And the word he came up with after working with him for over a week was harmony. Now I got something to work with. You want harmony amongst the people, right? So if you look at it from in terms of energy, a lot of people will say balance. Well, there is no balance. If I take this ball and my pen and I attempt to balance this pen on top of a ball, it's still moving, right? Because energy is always in motion. We can't stop motion. It's always in flux. So we want to create harmony in every situation, even including ourselves. When you're hitting that pause button, you're hitting it to create harmony within while you're taking that deep breath. So I went back to him, got to know his whole staff. I went there and there was one individual on the IT that sat there the whole time. And you could see his body language. He sat in the corner and I went, okay, let's play. So for me, it's always play. No significance, no make wrongs, no judgment. So I went in there and I know from a teaching standpoint, they're going to get it just through osmosis, whether they participated or not. You can't shut your hearing off, right? So trust it. Trust what is. Trust the science behind it. So I went in and I started playing with them. This one gentleman, before we started playing, this one gentleman who, the IT guy who's sitting in the corner, he's like, I've been through numerous ones of these, and this is mandatory. And if it were up to me, I wouldn't be here. And I know everything. You can't teach me nothing. No. I said, okay. And I turned and I walked away. I didn't even sit there waiting to listen. I did not react to him. I was responding. Okay, I got it. I got your communication. I walked away. I did my thing. I started playing. I'm throwing balls. And then they start responding because it was different than what they had said. Nobody likes to be talked at. Nobody likes to be told what to do. You're going to shut down. You're going to shut your listening down. So I created games. We played the whole 2 days. By the end of it, he sat in the front row in the auditorium and he said, Karen, I have never experienced anything like this. And I really love what you got. And here's my takeaways. And he just went through this whole list and everybody was like, wow. Because when I walked in there, I was told, don't ask the detectives what they see. They're so stressed the heck out. So what I did was I created solutions, Tranquil SOULutions, that is going to support all the stress and the anxiety and the overwhelm they're going through. And also listening to all the stresses that the IT department are going through. And I'm serving the whole by getting into their world. And it's the same thing with your children. Right? So I hope that served.
Yeah, it did. And I just wanted to put up, because you just mentioned Tranquil SOULutions. So your website is www.tranquilsoulutions.com. And that soul is spelled SOUL instead of solutions, which would not have the U in it. And
Thank
so please be sure to reach out to your website. And also, if you are wanting to contact her directly, she is at Karen at tranquilsoulutions.com. And I am just going to spell that. It's Karen, Karen, the at symbol, tranquilsoulutions.com. And that was the same spelling for her website as well. And make sure that you're reaching out to her, because she sounds like she has some amazing things to help you and to teach you. And so I just want to kind of circle back. Just a minute or so ago, we talked about that student in the classroom. This is going out at the beginning of August. Some schools across the country are back in session. Others are gearing up to get back in session within the next month. And so you've got that kiddo in your classroom who's yelling. And I think one of the things that, by teaching us to take a breath, is we're taking the control of ourselves back. And I believe, in my own experiences, this is proven, I can't even tell you how many times, that teachers especially, without even realizing it sometimes, have a fear of not being in control of any situation or their classroom as a whole. And I think by telling them, stop and take a breath, recenter yourself. And yes, I mean, it's a quick thing. I mean, you're not going to let this kid, do whatever they're doing and, for minutes at a time, but a couple of seconds, taking a couple of breaths. will help the whomever, but we're specifically talking about educators right now, to have a little bit more control and clarity, kind of
And
clear some
power.
of, yeah.
Yeah.
And so once they've taken that big deep breath,
Hmm.
and they have, given that direction, that whatever thing that they did, whether it was just kind of walking over and maybe, touching the child on the shoulder or the hand, or like you
Right.
said, maybe giving them something. It's kind of a shiny. I hate to put it this way, but it's kind of like a shiny object. Like, look over here, and
Yeah.
sort of help them to begin to refocus.
Right.
Um, and so, do you? I mean, you've been saying and nodding along as I've been saying that, so I feel like you agree with
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
takeaways here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to remember you keep yourself safe first and foremost, and keep the rest of the classroom safe. Most of my experiences have been they're smaller classrooms. It's not like you have 30 neurodivergent children in a classroom. However
Right.
many, you want to keep yourself safe. So oftentimes it could be as simple as when when they escalate, when one of your classmates, one of your students escalates to a point of like they're not hearing you any longer.
Right.
Oftentimes, my experience has been number one, they don't want to necessarily be touched. So be cognizant of that. And if they're okay with being touched, hopefully you know what and whom your students are by this point.
Right.
If not, feel your way through it. But if you approach them from behind and just give them a gentle hug, like you're okay, you're safe, I got you. Sometimes that could be all it takes. It doesn't have to be because it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, this is going to blow up my whole day, my classroom, and me, I. No, it's like when you have the power, how are you going to utilize that power? Stop, change, shift. How are you going to utilize that power to make a difference with the rest of the onlookers that are wide-eyed going, oh my God, and they're frozen in time because they don't know what's happening and what's going to expect and will this affect me, right? So keeping your calm, taking that breath will be your key to your next aligned actions.
Yes. That is great. Thank you so much. And I'm just thinking about, um, you know, the parent who is in the store. And I've had other guests and we've kind of talked about that, where it's because it's sort of public that our own, you know, nervous system, starts doing
Yeah,
all the things, and our
yeah.
heart starts to race, and our blood pressure goes up, and we're like, oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me to know what to
What's
do.
wrong? Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I really, I mean, I don't feel like I can stress it enough, that pausing for a split second, taking that breath, taking stock of the whole situation. I don't think, though, that the following steps that would need to happen can be um, spontaneous. And by that, I mean there have to be strategies that we have thought about, maybe even practiced,
Mhm.
before those situations come up. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying?
It makes perfect sense. And as you're saying it, I had this flashback to when my daughter she was probably 2 and had two tantrum on the floor. And she literally was like flailing and she's down there and she's flailing. And most parents, and I'm not saying I'm not like most parents, I probably am, but in the
Right.
moment, I totally wasn't because I would have been back in the day in my head, like, oh my God, what are people going to think of me? And how they're going to make me wrong. I'm a horrible parent or whatever. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was looking at her on the floor and I started laughing. And I was like, you look like a frog. Oh my God. She stopped flailing and carrying on in an instant because it wasn't getting the attention and the response, right? Back to responsibility, responding, right? It wasn't getting the response that she anticipated and wanted. She wanted the attention. What else, what other ways and means can I give her attention without having her carrying on? And then it was in the middle of the grocery store. And I just was laughing like, wow. And as I said, she stopped immediately. Never, ever did it again. And we
Wow.
also train them. We also train the responses through our reactions.
Yes, I 100% believe that. And so,
Sadly, but true.
right. So if we've trained our children in ways that we wished we had not trained them, what can we do? Is this something that you work on with your clients, whether they be parents or educators or employees, just any general person? Is that something that you work on with them to help them retrain themselves to retrain others?
Absolutely. It always gets down to self. And we dig deep. And, some of it will shift easier than not. And some takes time. You have to also learn to be compassionate and patient with yourself because you didn't learn it overnight. The response didn't happen overnight. The reaction didn't happen overnight. So be compassionate with yourself and allow, right? There's a spiritual context called law of reciprocity. So if you're giving all the time and you're giving, you have to learn to be able to receive. Right? So you're giving, and when you learn to receive, you're allowing support from like somebody like myself, or maybe it's a parent, a clergyman, or whatever. Right? When you learn to give and take, you're learning to respond. You're learning to spiral in the law, what I call the laws of nature, and all of a sudden we start shifting, and our whole ecosystem around us begins to shift as well. Our health shifts, our relationship shift, our finances shift, our relationship with our environment shifts. And so, without a doubt, the people around us start shifting when we choose to change.
I find that interesting, and I'm curious. Do you really think that the people around us change, or do you think that on a different, maybe different cognitive level, that because we are changing how we not respond, how we receive others around us is what changes? Or do you believe it is that's reciprocal, that when we're changing, others are changing as well?
Right. We only have the power to choose to change ourselves. Once we change, we start, let me go back in time a moment. So we've now trained people how to be around us by our responses. When we choose to change in our responses and we've created boundaries, right, we are retraining them. They're not going to get like my daughter on the floor, they're not going to get the same response that they would have gotten prior to that. So what happens is they now have to create a choice that will change them or it won't. But if they choose not to change, I'm still changed, and my boundaries are going to keep from going into their 7-foot field of consciousness to respond or react to it, rather, the way I did before. They're not going to get the same reaction. So yes, in essence, we both change. It's almost like a chemical reaction in a sense, because it's energy. And energy is like a magnet. If you have two north poles, they're just going to keep doing one of these numbers, right? Right. So, yeah. So I believe it's a little combination of both of them. But yes, it will change around us as well. The people around us as well.
Yeah. And I see what you're saying with that explanation, and I appreciate that explanation. So we've talked about your book. Is that your first book? Do you have other books that people can purchase?
I have two of my own books on Amazon. I have my first book, which is called 5 Ways to Create a Ripple. And the second one, the 5 Ways to Create a Ripple, the first chapter is all about the anatomy of a smile. And I donate 100% of the proceeds to Operation Smile because I believe a child's smile lights up the world. So that's one of my big
Oh,
heart.
wow. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And at Christmas time, I match 100% of whatever is donated. I match 100% and I give all of that to Operation Smiles. Spiraling, I have 11 collaborative international best-selling books that I've written chapters in. And then after that, this is my first solo after that. That became an um, best-selling here in the States. And 3 days, 7 categories. So it's really making a difference. I have a group of people that came to me and said, Karen, I am doing a book club around it, and there's 20 people in that book club. I've taken the methodology that I talk about, and I've shared it at the beginning, and I've put it into what's called the new paradigm of awakened potential community that I built, what's called a school community. And I'm teaching it and breaking it down to the smallest, minutest within that school community, which is a subscription program. It's free right now as I'm building it out, but it's going to become a subscription program. And I give all my tools. I have courses in there. I just keep pouring because I'm a giver. And I know it comes back to me tenfold. That's law of reciprocity. So yeah, like feel free to look it up. The spelling of my name is Rudolf. Most people will say Karen Rudolf and think PHOLF. So if you look me up on any social media, I'll be there. And if you reach out personally to me, you'll get me responding. So any questions that come up as a result of the book or anything I've said here, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to explain it. And like I said, you'll get me, not my team.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing about that. And so tell me a little bit here quickly about the ripple effect. And I forget, it was 5 something for the ripple effect.
5 ways to create a ripple.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that book and what that means.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, I haven't even opened that book in a long time. It was a long time ago I wrote it. But I wrote it when I was out there. I started with Tranquil SOULutions in 2007. And I wanted to get out there in the world. And then somebody said to me, well, how are you going to get out there in the world and get your message out there in the world if people don't know you? And I thought, I should write a book. So I wrote 5 Ways to Create a Ripple. And basically, it takes you through the journey of introspective. You get to know yourself. It always, always, always begins with awareness. So I began with the awareness, number 1, of who Karen is and how you can get to know yourself. And you're going to get more, what's the word I'm looking for? With honey than you are vinegar. You're going to get more attraction in a sense with honey than you will vinegar. So what are you putting out there? If I'm going to smile at you, you're more likely to get into my world and want to get to know me. So I start talking about the anatomy of a smile in there, and not just about me, but encouraging others to smile more and create relationships. So it takes you from relationships to the 5 steps of creating a ripple in there. And it talks about strength and your own personal strength, and to thine own self be true. It all reflects all of that, and getting to a point of I had a lot of clients coming to me and saying, Karen, I want to try and really do something for others. I really love to serve others, and they don't always use the word serve. I want to help others. And
Right.
in a spiritual context, there is no helping others, because what you're really saying in the world of communication is they need to be fixed. I'm not here to fix anybody. Everybody's whole, complete, perfect. They do not need fixing. I'm here to support people. So word creates reality. And in that book, I start talking about those little nuances. The word try, for me, in the world of communication, that is basically telling your brain that you don't want to be responsible. So you attempt to do something. You either, Yoda says, no, try, do. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it, right? So those little nuances are steps towards manifesting a life you want. So that was the first book, and leading up to all the things, one of the many things I do today. So
I can absolutely see the thread of connectivity
everything.
between that first book. Obviously, I don't know all the collaboratives that you've completed, but between that first book and this one now, Spiraling Up, there's absolutely, it's a very evident, at least to me, thread of
Excellent.
how and I think it's very interesting that the smile has so much to do with life in general. As you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that when I was growing up, I grew up in a rural community, and everybody, it's the old saying, oh, everybody knows everybody. Well, literally everybody does not know everybody, but everybody was friendly to everybody. If you
Exactly. And smile.
passed somebody in the store, you smiled. If you saw
Yeah,
someone on the street, you smiled or you waved. We
exactly.
used to have this thing that I grew up out in the country of that rural community.
Mhm.
And if you passed somebody driving on a back road, you waved. You didn't have to know them. It was
Ex-
just a sign. Like, you can't smile at them at that point for them to see it. So you wave at them.
uh,
I've noticed now that that doesn't happen. I Not ever, but it's very infrequent. Both the waving and the making eye contact and smiling at someone else. We're so focused on where we're going, or we're focused on a phone, or we're talking to someone,
exactly.
and just taking, and I think it goes back to that, take that breath, even figuratively, and just go,
Yeah.
oh, there are other people around me.
Right? Exactly. Because we live in a society, sadly, that's a me, I society. We've been trained by society in a sense to push everybody else away. I grew up also in a rural town and I still to this day, my children, because I did it, where their first mentors, first teachers, my youngest daughter, she'll wave at the strangers or smile all the time. A smile is the first means of communication. That's your first connection to another human being. And what did we do during COVID? We were locked down. We weren't smiling and talking to each other, but yet you get on Zoom and it's like, your first thing is to smile because we want connection. How do you create a connection? First and foremost, the first thing is a smile. So don't take that one lightly. And again, when you pause and realize we live in a fast-paced society today, it's like fast information. It's their cell phones, smartphones, smart TVs, smart this, smart that. We lose our identities in the hustle and bustle of getting our things done and our list of doing. We forget how to be, and that is key. And we can't do that without that pause.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I agree with that very much. Well, Karen, this has been an absolutely lovely conversation, and we're not quite finished. There is just a few minutes left to go, but I will give you this opportunity now. If there is something that you wish to leave us with, or that we haven't discussed yet that you want to discuss, now is that opportunity to have that discussion or give us those final words of inspiration or encouragement, your choice.
Okay, thank you. Well, first and foremost, thank you and your listening audience for being open to the conversation, because when you choose to change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change. Years ago, I had heard the quote by Wayne Dyer, who, when I was doing a lot of personal growth and development work, because I realized it was in here, not out there, when I was searching for everything out there, searching for answers out there. I heard Wayne Dyer say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. My brain heard it. When you change the way you look at it, the way you look at things change. Slight nuance. However, it gets back to perception. So when we shift our perception, that's what took me globally on stages, speaking to people and getting into more neuroscience and quantum physics and all of the stuff that I now do today as part of what I provide. So when you choose to change, everything around you will change. I promise you. So don't be playing small, because you're really meant to be living a full life and meant to be living at your fullest, because you also have work to do, because you have a lot to teach others and be a contribution to this world. So
Thank you
here,
very much. And I do want to point one more thing out. I don't want to forget this, and I'm going to quickly share your website. I think I'm going to quickly share this at least. And so on the website, and I'm going to need you to help me find it.
Okay.
You told me that for my audience there, and for anyone,
Yes.
that there is a reflection that you offer.
Yes, I think it's at the bottom of the page, if I remember correctly. Go all the way to the bottom.
You have a lot of hair, by the way, in these pictures.
A lot of, oh yes, I do.
A lot of hair.
I have a lot of hair, and I actually just recently cut probably about 4 inches off, and I'm like, I miss it. I feel naked without it. That was the picture that you see on there with all that hair was the promo picture for the movie that's coming out. The Art of Manifestation. That one is coming out at probably this fall, is what they're talking about. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so is it the Explore Your Next Step?
I had eye surgery, so it's tough for me to see this. Explore Your Next Step. I believe if you click on that,
Okay.
it should take you to a page, or what's the one above it? Go right above. I should know this. If you scroll up a little bit, there's another link.
Learn more about
Start Your
Journey.
Start Your Journey. Yeah,
Okay.
because that's the one that has the spiraling up. Yep. That'll take you to a pretty in-depth, when I give, I give. So don't be overwhelmed by it. But when you start that journey, it will take you to a self-reflective questions. When I get a new client, the first thing I do is, excuse me, request they get a journal, because that's the quickest, fastest way to start going within yourself, because your body knows. You already have that inner wisdom. When you start trusting it, you're building your intuition to begin to trust yourself. It's already there. It's your GPS system to guide you in creating that clarity. So that gift that I have for your listening audience will support them in getting deeper into that conversation within.
Okay. Sorry, it wasn't screen sharing the actual screens when I was clicking on your link. So I had to switch how I was sharing that. So,
yeah.
Okay. So this is what they will
find.
It.
Yeah, that's what you'll find.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much. This truly has been a lovely conversation, and I am looking forward to being on your podcast in upcoming weeks or months. And again, I thank you for being my guest today. And to everyone who is listening or watching, thank you so much for joining. And remember, we know who we are, but not who we will be. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye, and thank you.